General Zexathara stood before the communication array, his 6 arms trembling despite his efforts to maintain composure. The crimson scales that had once gleamed with pride now appeared dulled, reflecting the harsh emergency lighting of his flagship's bridge. Behind him, the remnants of what was once the most feared armada in the galaxy watched in stunned silence. 3 cycles ago, Zexathara had broadcast his declaration across every human colony, every space station, every inhabited world in their pathetic little corner of the galaxy. His voice had boomed with absolute certainty. Primitive humans, your expansion ends today. We are the Veltar hegemony, conquerors of 1,000 worlds. Your species will kneel or burn. The memory of that broadcast now felt like a cruel joke from the universe itself. Commander Velnus approached cautiously, his translator clicking nervously. General, the human fleet has surrounded us completely. They're waiting. Zexathara's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as bitter amusement. Waiting. Of course they were waiting. That's what had made this entire campaign such a catastrophic miscalculation. Humans didn't fight like any species the hegemony had ever encountered. When the Veltar had conquered the crystalline entities of Praxios VII, the enemy had fought with mathematical precision until their defeat became statistically inevitable, then surrendered immediately. The gaseous collectives of the Nebula Reach had simply dispersed when overwhelmed, reforming elsewhere to negotiate terms. Even the warrior clans of Carax Prime had followed ancient codes of honor, accepting defeat when their champions fell, in single combat. Humans were different. Humans were terrifyingly, impossibly different. The first sign had come at the mining colony of New Helsinki. Intelligence had reported it as a soft target. Barely 10,000 civilians, minimal defenses. It should have been a routine occupation, a demonstration of Veltar might to demoralize the humans before the real war began. Instead, Zexathara had watched in growing horror as miners turned plasma cutters into weapons, as children barely old enough to walk carried ammunition to fighters, as elderly humans rigged fusion reactors to detonate rather than surrender their world. The colony had fallen, yes, but at a cost that made victory taste like ash. They're requesting to board, General, Velnus reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Zexathara closed his eyes, remembering the reports that had followed. The routine pacification of the agricultural world Demeter's Garden, where farmers had somehow turned harvesting equipment into an artillery network that had decimated 3 full battalions. The simple blockade of the trade hub at Junction Station, where human merchants had jury-rigged their cargo vessels into guided missiles, taking down ships 50 times their size in suicidal ramming attacks. But it was the defense of Earth's moon that had truly broken something in the Veltar psyche. Luna Base had been surrounded, cut off from reinforcements, facing a fleet that outnumbered them 100 to 1. By every tactical analysis, every simulation, every precedent in galactic warfare, they should have surrendered within hours. Instead, they had fought for 47 days. The humans had used every trick, every desperate measure, every impossible strategy. They had turned their research stations into fortress guns, their ore processors into missile factories, their very air recyclers into chemical weapons. When ammunition ran low, they had thrown rocks. When rocks ran out, they had thrown themselves. On the 33rd day, a group of human engineers had actually managed to rig their facility's gravity generator to create localized anomalies, turning portions of the Veltar fleet against each other in a chaotic dance of destruction. By the 40th day, children were operating anti-ship batteries while their parents held the perimeter with nothing but mining tools and borrowed armor. Zexathara had ordered the bombardment to stop on day 47, not because Luna Base had fallen, but because his own commanders were on the verge of mutiny. The sight of humans, some barely adolescent by their species standards, charging Veltar dropships with improvised explosives strapped to their bodies, had shattered the morale of soldiers who had conquered star systems. General, Velnus pressed. The final blow had come at the Battle of the Asteroid Fields, where the humans had somehow convinced an entire asteroid mining operation to abandon their posts, leaving behind automated systems that had been reprogrammed with a horrifying purpose. The Veltar fleet had found itself navigating through a field of rocks that moved with purpose, guided by artificial intelligence that treated military formations like ore to be processed. When the battle ended, Zexthara had lost 60% of his remaining ships to what the humans had cheerfully designated aggressive mining operations. Now, as he stood before the communication array, General Zexthara understood why every species that had ever encountered humanity had either allied with them or fled to the furthest reaches of space. It wasn't their technology, though they had proven disturbingly creative with it. It wasn't their numbers. The hegemony still held the advantage there. It wasn't even their tactical brilliance, though their unconventional strategies had surprised everyone. It was their absolute unwavering refusal to accept defeat. "Open the channel," Zexthara commanded, his voice steady despite everything. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the human flagship. Admiral Sarah Chen looked exactly as she had in the intelligence briefings, unremarkable by most species standards, average height, graying hair, eyes that seemed almost gentle. But Zexthara had learned to see past appearances. Those gentle eyes had watched her own. Ships ram Veltar dreadnoughts. Those soft hands had signed orders that turned civilian populations into guerrilla armies. "Admiral Chen," Zexthara began, and for the first time in his military career, he felt the weight of words he had never expected to speak. "I am General Zexthara of the Veltar hegemony. I formally request terms of surrender." Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in those deceptively gentle eyes. "We're listening, General." As Zexthara began to outline the terms of his fleet's capitulation, he found himself thinking about the reports he would never file, the victory, parades that would never happen, the conquered worlds that would forever remain free. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson that would echo through the ages. Some species simply could not be defeated, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they had never learned how to give up. Behind Admiral Chen, Zexthara could see other human officers, young and old, male and female, representing dozens of worlds and cultures. They all shared that same quality that had broken his armada, that impossible determination that turned every defeat into a prelude to victory, every loss into fuel for the next battle. The Veltar hegemony had come to conquer humanity. Instead, they had learned what it truly meant to be human.